open for this wonderful session, I want you to think about this quote from Winston Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Think about that. Success is not final. Because I've reached a success doesn't mean that's the end of the game or the end of everything. And failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. We're going to talk about murky mirrors mapping helps. Murky mirrors mapping helps. Murky mirrors are those things we look back into our past, we look even into our present, trying to look into the mirror of our present and see what's going on in our life. And it gets a little bit murky. We begin to put our filters on and our mask on and present ourselves the way we want to be seen instead of what's reality. I challenge you, we need to wipe away the murky and map out to help. What's a murky mirror? Now, I might take a stress test or a health check or a depression check or an anxiety check, or I might take a leadership analysis. And I look at that and I begin to present myself the way I want to be seen. Can you consider that for a moment? We like to present ourselves the way we want to be seen, not according to reality. And if I really want to grow, I want to grow as a parent. I want to grow as an employer. I want to grow as an employee. I want to grow as a man. I want to grow as a woman, as a mom or a dad or a friend. I'm going to have to wipe away the murky from the mirror so I can really see the whole picture. We've had a life getting to this point full of winding roads. Can you go there with me? If we look back over our lives, you look back to where you've come from, it hasn't just been a straight line. It's been a winding road of up and downs and a mix of good and bads and positives and negatives. And all of those experiences have contributed to the person we are today and how we respond and how our mental and emotional health is responding to the world and what we're doing with it. Some of it we've made choices, some of it choices have been made for us. Nonetheless, it's beneficial to look back and look at that winding road and different points and say, what do I want to do about that? How do I want to do something in my life that affects how those winding roads affect me today? What brought us here? Now, this little chart on ACEs. ACEs is an adverse childhood experience. And there's 10 particular ACEs that are really detrimental and dysfunctional in our lives, but they happen a lot. Abuse, physical abuse. Maybe you've been through physical abuse, or you've been a giver of physical abuse, or somebody next to you went through physical abuse. Sometimes when somebody else next to me goes through something, especially if they're close, it affects me almost as much as it does them. Emotional abuse, sexual abuse. 1 out of 4 females is sexually assaulted by age 16, and 1 out of 5 males, and those are odd numbers. I think it's really raising today. Neglect, physical neglect, emotional neglect. We're in a highly sexualized and highly physical and high sensual world and culture. Being neglected physically, being ignored, being put off to the side, not getting the emotional input that we need. That is as impactful sometimes as being physically abused or sexually abused. Emotional neglect. Household dysfunction. Someone in the household has had mental illness. Someone's been incarcerated, whether it's for a day or a decade. Incarceration of a relative is a highly impactful event for a child, for sure. The mother's treated violently. There's been domestic violence. Substance abuse. Divorce. Many people that I work with today, they can look at all of this and say, well, Phil, I went through all of this as a child. All of this. And research tells us if you've had 3 of these in your childhood, guess what happens? Why does it matter? The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, along with Kaiser Permanente, did a study back in 2016. It said just 3 of these ACEs, just 3 of these, adverse childhood experiences, 52% domestic violence, 52% disability days at work, 54% occurrent depression, 43% a sense of hopelessness, 58% suicide attempts, 50% drug abuse, 65% alcoholism. alcoholism, 67% just a dissatisfaction with life, 78% of IV drug abusers, and 48% of promiscuity. And that promiscuity is talking about somebody who's had 50 different sexual partners, which is a great, horrible uh, testimony of our culture today and attachment disorder. Wow, just these things that happen in our childhood push us into dysfunctional lifestyle. And as you go forward into this and study, we're not going to get deeply into it here. I just want you to understand it's good to go back and look and to do it without a murky mirror, to do it with as much clarity as you can so that you can take action today to build resiliency in your life and in your children's life going forward. So we're going to do a little bit of mapping. And when you have a mapping, you might have some tools. You might have a camera, and you go out and you look and try and decide where you're going to go and how you're going to. But we're going to look backwards and map backwards. While we're doing that, you might find some skeletons. Something might come up and you're going, oh man, that was really bad. Of course there's bad things that happen to all of us. We're all human beings and bad things happen to human beings because we're in this world. There's been some circumstances. I think it's a little dice over there. And you've traveled and done different things with what's and done things have been done to you. So we want to be honest about those. You could have had a very exciting and vibrant life with a lot of activity in it, a lot of great activity and a lot of energetic activity. Or you could have had a quiet life. All of that helps contribute to who you are today, and all of that is important. So as we make this map, right? We'll call this life mapping. I want you to take a piece of paper, right? Write down. I got a little card flip deal here, and I'm going to write down. It says 5 big positives. Maybe you had some sports stuff that happened to you. You had a great sports awards or education, graduations, personal achievements, marriage and partnerships, children, a faith commitment, a commitment of your life over to God, a money windfall that came in, just a fun time. You had a fun trip with your family at some point. What are 5 big positives? As we take a breather right here, think of 5 big positives that have happened in your life. I'm going to write some down for me, if that's okay, and I want you to be doing the same thing. Well, I don't know about you. I can do a lot more than 5. And that's okay. If you got 10 or whatever, that's okay. But at least make sure you've got 5 big positives before we go to the next piece of our assignment. Now, maybe on the same piece of paper or the other side or somewhere else, you write down 5 big negatives. Maybe there was an illness in your life or a big personal loss. Somebody died who was close to you, or you moved, right? A move from one city to another, from a different kind of area to another. The law got involved in your life. There was a car crash. You were a part of a group that excluded you or rejected you, or somebody that was important to you excluded you or rejected you. You were abused. Maybe you were bullied. Violence. Disappointment. Just a big disappointment. Something you want to do that just never has happened, or you gave up on a dream at some point in life. You had this big dream and you just gave up on it. That's a big negative. That's a big negative. So take a minute and write it down. All right. Boy, there's a big one. And these don't have to be in order. Just write them down. Don't worry about the order that they happened in. Whew. Seems like it's easier to list the negatives we think of those really fast. Man, I'm sitting here going, my negative side over here is moving faster than my positive side. I have a lot of great positives. It's just thinking about it here for a minute, I began to think of all these impact events. Boy, there's another one. All right, so get those written down. Get those written down. Then we're gonna use those here in a minute. Now, next thing I want you to do is just take a piece of paper, and you might want a bigger piece of paper than this, but I'm just using this because it's a good size for holding up. And draw a line across it. And you can see on my chart, there's a line across that page. And then what I've done, put those events, go back to that list, and put them in chronological order. Which one happened first? Well, if I look at here, this positive over here was number 1. And then this one over here, this negative over here was number 2. And then this was number 3. And this was number 4. It's number 5. Oh. It's number 6. Well, this one's 4.5. But actually, it's 3.5. Or 2.5. Oh, actually, I have a positive and a negative. It's the same thing. It was positive when I went in and negative when I came out. And then most of these negatives in my life came after a good life of positives. So if I laid it out, right, you look at my chart, and I just love to play basketball. 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We had a great team, a lot of fun. It was really positive in my life. Then we moved to Oklahoma City when I was 16. That was a negative. One of the worst things that ever happened in my personal life, the impact on me. And then I went to college and university after I got out of high school, and there's some great positives there. I met Jesus and committed my life over. Got married right after I got out of university. And then I started having good career success, and we started having kids, and there's some other things in there, but I'm not mentioning all of it, right? Can't put everything in there. Man, we had this car wreck that was a mess. It wasn't real bad, but it just was interruptive. And as that career success went on and our kids went on, my dad died, and I had this big crash at this church I was working for. Everything just kind of imploded. But out of that came a relationship with the National Center for Fathering and more career success, better than I had before. And then I had a miracle healing. I didn't mention a bad point in there was this thyroid operation. I had this miracle healing, and my son Luke became ill. But then, and that career wrecked. Oh gosh, there it is again. And out of that career wreck comes Solomon, what we're doing today, and you and all the great people I get to be with. So this is kind of my up and down through life with as much as I want to share on this screen. And you should have one like that now. It's just drawn on your piece of paper. Take a minute, put it in sequence. You might have to move around, scratch it out, and put it in relation to the line based on how good or bad it is. If it's a big thing, put it up high. If it's a horrible thing, put it down low. In our next part of our exercise, what I want you to do is examine each one. What good came out of it? And don't spend a huge amount of time here. You can do that later. Maybe you want to take a half a day or a retreat, or take a day out and get away from everybody and look at these things. But right now, just go down here and say, what good came out of this basketball? Well, I learned how to play on a team and have fun, win or lose. Right? And we won a lot, but I learned how to win. Right? I learned how to win. What pains came out of it? Right? Well, I didn't get to play in high school. That was disappointing. So what good came out of my university? Well, that degree has advanced me in management and in Solon. And what bad came out of it? I wish I had done some other things alongside when I was university to have helped with that. Marriage, what's good's come out of it? Well, a great family, a great wife, a lot of good years. What pains? We've had plenty of struggles. We have. But we've grown out of our pains. Children, that's man, I love my kids. And now I get grandkids. What pains come out? Well, now I have grandkids. And those are hard to deal with. So as you go through each of these and think of what good is still coming out of it. What pains are still coming out of it? Just take a few minutes here, and you might pick a couple of positives and a couple of negatives and go through this exercise. Don't consider everything right now. Right? I'll pick my thyroid. What good came out of that? Really improved my prayer life. And what pains came out of it? I had 5 years of absolute chaos. But what good came out of it is I had that miracle we talk about. Think through where it's healed. It's been healed for some 20 years now, which is an incredible miracle that I get to tell people about. Pick one negative. We spent a little time and you've been thinking about it. Pick one of those negatives and say, what will you do for your children to make it different? Remember that murky mirror? It's kind of unclear, and you look back at it and you're going, man, I really don't want to look into that negative. It's just a black hole. Well, you're going to have to wipe it off and clear it up a little bit and make sure, what will you do for your children to make it different for them? What can you do? You can't do everything, but what can you do for your children to make it different so that if they go through such a negative, they can go through it better than you went through it, or you can prevent that negative if at all possible in their life. Now pick one positive. What will you do to make a great world happen for your children? Wow, what a great question. What will you do to make a great world happen for your children? Just pick one positive in there. If there's something in there that you could learn from and apply to your parenting that would help your children, which one of those positives is it? Maybe you had a great set of grandparents who really worked with you, a great set of parents, or you had a coach who just took you under their wing and built a positive attitude in you, and you want to build that coaching attitude into your children. Pick one positive. Now remember this murky mirror. Realistically and positively, what's still hanging out there? What's still hanging out that needs to be wiped clear and put in the past? Some of these items are still affecting you today, and there's probably one that you've thought about as we've gone through this. And it's making your life still murky. You're not seeing clearly. You're denying. You're lying to yourself. You're telling yourself everything's cool, but it's not. It's still hanging out there, and it needs to be wiped clear and put into the past. I want you to identify what that is and keep it in mind as you go through as our parenting classes, and as you go through thinking about how you parent, how you co-parent, and how those things are affecting you. Just identify it and be realistic with it. I was talking with an individual yesterday who's working through exactly this. We've been working together for about 6 months, actually about 5 years, but recently in about 6 months. And here's this murky issue that they're digging into, saying, how can I wipe it clear, put it in the past, and go on and build a positive life forward. And remember, success is not final. All those positives are not. You got more positives coming. Failure is not fatal. Think of all those bad, ugly events in the past, and here you are in today. It's not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. When you're doing a life mapping, remember that. It's the courage to continue that counts. Wiping off the murky mirror, taking a good look at it, mapping helps.